What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Love and Marriage Detroit, Season 1, Episode 3, Don't Rock the Boat. So this episode starts off where last week's episode ended, which was at LaToya's wine event. So LaToya is launching this wine called Opulence. She has this event for her friends and family to taste the wine, and things went completely left. So an argument starts between Christina and her husband Brandon, because the conversation came up about why can't Brandon basically go out and play with his friends. That's basically what it felt like. Why can't Brandon come out and play with us? So Christina does not want her husband Brandon going out to the clubs. He's in the music industry, so he needs to be at the clubs. I don't know for what. I guess to find new artists or listen to new whatever the situation is. He's got to be, at the hot spots. And if the hot spots happens to be the clubs, that's where he needs to be because he's in the music industry. So Brandon tells her that she's holding him back in his career, and Brandon says, you're just worried about looking insecure. And so Brandon feels like his wife does not support him and that his wife is extremely controlling. I don't know if this whole club thing is necessary or not. I really don't know, because when they were at the club, I didn't see any kind of networking going on. I didn't see any type of business deals being made. I just saw them sitting around drinking and girls twerking everywhere. Okay, but he said that's where he needs to be to help his career. Brandon feels, like I said, unsupported and controlled by Christina. And Christina then breaks down because she talks about how he never acknowledges what she had to sacrifice, that she had to give up her career in fashion to stay home, take care of the kids, I guess to allow him to do his thing, to do his career. So now Anthony, the one that kind of started all of this, because he's very much into the whole husbands, don't ask your wife for permission. We're men. We do what needs to be done. And we're not going to be controlled by our women, blah, blah, blah. That whole mentality. Now he thinks that Brandon is doing too much. And he's trying to reel Brandon back because Brandon is going toe to toe with Christina. He is not backing down at all. And as much as everybody is trying to get him to calm down, he's not. He's going toe to toe with her. So he's not backing down. He's standing 10 toes deep, arguing with his wife at this event in front of all these damn people. People are trying to stop them, but they just keep going at it. And there's nothing more uncomfortable than being in a social setting and watching a couple argue and go at it with one another. It ruins the whole entire night. She said that she can get any man that she wants, and this did not sit well with him at all, because she was trying to prove that she's not insecure. So he's like, I'm not insecure because I can get anybody that I want. Finally, they end up leaving. They walk out, but the fight continues on the sidewalks of Detroit. So they're walking back to their penthouse. And as they're walking back to their penthouse, they're arguing still. So Brandon says to her, like, bottom line, do I have your support to get into these streets and do what I got to do to make this money? And she says, you have my support, but I don't want you in these clubs. So I guess she doesn't support him. He doesn't have her support. Brandon says to her, do you really want to be married to me, or do you really want to be with me, or do you just want to be in a marriage? You just want to be married. And there are women like that who, to them, they don't care how much they're suffering with their husbands. They're not walking away because they really believe either in the institution of marriage, or they really want to keep up the appearance that they're in a good marriage, and that they're not, that their husbands are great, their husbands are perfect, their marriages are perfect, but they're suffering in private, right? Their marriages are falling completely apart. They're married to monsters, but they will never let the world know it because just they have to keep up this appearance that their marriage is wonderful. And it's all about the marriage and not even about, their own happiness. So Latoya was really embarrassed about Brandon and the fight. So now we see Latoya in the parking lot with her husband, Anthony. So she felt really embarrassed. She hosts this really beautiful, elegant event, and now it turns into this brawl between Brandon and Christina. The whole night has been ruined. Nobody gave a damn about the wine anymore. So Anthony says that Brandon needs to invest in Christina the way that he invested in his wife. Anthony's a very sneaky guy, because he's very passive aggressive in a way, or I don't know what the word is, but he's one of those people, like, he'll take a situation and somehow manipulate it and turn it into him and what he wants from his wife. So as his wife Latoya, who is the doctor, by the way, as she's talking about, the fight between Brandon and Christina, instead of just leaving it about them, he says that Brandon needs to invest in Christina the way that he invested in Latoya by putting up the money for her wine business. It's like, where did that come from? So it's kind of like he's finding this opportunity. He's going to take this opportunity or create an opportunity to manipulate his wife into something. So she's like, well, it wasn't just you that put up the money. I put up money as well. And he said, but if it wasn't for my money, your business never would have launched. I'm like, what? Why are you bringing this up now? What does this have to do with what's going on with Brandon and Christina? So he just had to put it in there. He had to let it be known because there's a camera there. So he wants the world to know that my wife was able to launch her business because of my money. And I wonder if he's trying to guilt her into something, like maybe going back to Atlanta or something. I don't know, but that was really weird. Side note, to me, Anthony and Latoya don't match. She's very sophisticated. She's a doctor, and I don't know. They just don't match to me at all. Moving on to Russell and Kirby. So Kobe invites her parents over, and she wants to have a conversation with her parents about Russell making the decision to go into the ministry. So Russell comes in for a quick second just to pick up the baby. And so him and the baby leave. And now she has an opportunity to talk to her parents. So after Russell leaves with the baby, Kobe's dad says, so how's Kendall, the baby? How's Kendall doing? Is she sleeping through the night? And Kobe's like, no, but I want to talk about Russell. She's like, I ain't here to talk about the damn baby. I want to talk about my husband and these decisions that he's making without me. So she tells her dad, no, the baby is fine, but I want to talk about Russell. So she says, he told me he's going to divinity school. And her father, he's like, what? Russell's going to divinity school? And Kobe's like, Dad, I know that he told you. And the dad was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't know. Just be honest. So her father, who's a minister or a pastor, he was willing to lie to his daughter about not knowing that her husband had already approached him about going to, what is it called? Divinity school. Because if he didn't know that Russell had already told her that he knew, he would have acted like he didn't know. He would have been like, what? Russell's going to divinity? I didn't know. But y'all, he's a pastor and he was willing to lie. But anyways, so the dad said, so it comes out that, she already knew that her dad knew. And Kobe didn't know that Russell was already attending divinity school, and he's been attending it for about 3 weeks. I'm like, how does he not? And it's probably online. Maybe it's online. But the man on the show, I'm like, they're living like double, triple, quadruple lives. Because first you had Brandon, who didn't tell his wife that he had signed a new artist, didn't tell his wife that he was at a damn club. Then you have Anthony, who moved to Atlanta, but didn't want his wife to think that he had moved to Atlanta. Wanted his wife to think that he was just going to be bouncing back and forth between Atlanta and Detroit. Now you have Russell, who number one, made the decision to go. I thought he was going to be a pastor, but we found out that he doesn't. Okay, well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Now we have Russell, who didn't tell his wife that he wanted to go into the ministry, and didn't tell his wife that he's already started divinity school, but he's telling everybody else around her. Like, the men on this show are just unbelievable. So she tells her dad and her mom, well, I just found out that he's actually started divinity school. I had no idea. And her parents are like, well, it's got nothing to do with you because, he got the calling. This is between him and God. God led him to this. So what's the problem? And I'm like, is this am I watching an episode of The Twilight Zone? Because this is making no sense. This child is coming to her parents saying, my husband is doing things behind my back. He's making life-changing decisions behind my back. He's not consulting me at all. And we're supposed to be as one. And her parents are like, this is between him and God. It's got nothing to do with you. Then the father says, so what is the issue? Is the issue that he made this decision for himself, or is the issue that he didn't tell you? Well, duh, Papa. The issue is that he didn't tell her. So Kobe talks about how she didn't like being a preacher's kid because, I don't know, it took up so much of her dad's time. Her dad really wasn't around that much or something. I don't know. So she doesn't want that for her child. So up until this point, she thinks that her husband wants to be a minister, a pastor, because she talks about how growing up as a preacher's kid, it was difficult, it was hard, and she doesn't want that for her child. And so then her parents say, well, if he would have come to you first, what would you have said? And she goes, well, I would have said no. And then her parents are like, well, duh, that's exactly why he didn't tell you. As if they were okay with him not consulting his wife about this. This was bizarre. This whole dinner scene was bizarre. That these people, the father who's a minister and his wife, felt like it was okay for their son-in-law to hide pertinent information from his wife. Only because he wants to follow in his father-in-law's footsteps. So I guess when the father-in-law found out that his son-in-law wanted to do what he does, it just really tickled him. And he really didn't give a damn about Kobe's feelings or what Kobe thought. It's just bizarre. Moving on to Anthony. Anthony's having a conversation with Brandon. Brandon blames his bad behavior, having this full-on argument with his wife in front of all these people. He blames it on the damn wine. So Brandon's mad at everybody. He's mad at the boys, his friends, for something. I don't know. He's mad at them because they didn't control him, or because they didn't stand up for him about him wanting to go to the clubs or something. And he's mad at his wife. He's mad at everybody. So he says to Anthony that he hasn't talked to Christina since the wine event. And Anthony was like, what? And so he's like, yeah, man, I don't even know if I'm separated. I could be separated by now for all I know, because I haven't talked to her since then. And so Anthony's like, you better go get your wife. You better go get your wife. Quit playing and go get your wife. So Anthony, you caused some of this. Now you're... Anyways, Anthony says in his confession that he gave up because he wants to show what a great husband he is and how much he sacrificed. He says that he gave up working for Disney Marvel Studios in Atlanta for his family because his wife told him to come back home or she was going to get a divorce. So he gave up all of that to come back home and be with his family. He still sounds very resentful towards LaToya. Christina, she meets up with her friend Chelsea. This scene is important only because she says that she doesn't want to give up on her marriage. Moving on from there, we have Anthony and LaToya. They're having date night. They're meeting up with a couple of their friends. And no, that's not it. They're having date night, just the two of them. I forgot. And he tells his wife, he's like, you know what? I know you're not going to want to hear this, but I'm going to have to go to Atlanta for business. And LaToya says, I don't have an issue with you going to Atlanta for business. My issue with you back then was that we were in a pandemic. You took off for Atlanta. You were gone for 8 months straight. and I had to hold down the fort by myself. And the kids were struggling with school. I guess they were going to like a all white school. They were dealing with racism or something, and she didn't have him there to help her. And so her issue was the fact that he was gone. He was MIA. Not the fact that it had anything to do with Atlanta. It was just that he was gone. It could have been Atlanta, could have been LA, could have been New York. She would have been mad just the same. And so she's like, if you got to go there for business, I get it. I understand. I don't have an issue with that. I just have an issue with you leaving and not coming back. So Anthony said that, I wasn't gone to be gone. I was going to be going back and forth between Detroit and Atlanta. And LaToya said, you bought an entire house in Atlanta. So where's the back and forth if you were like investing in a home over there? So she said that she needed him in Detroit, deal with the kids, whatever. Anthony says that if LaToya had to leave the state to go take care of business, he would have supported her. But we don't know that because that's never happened. You can talk a good game and say, oh, if it was you, I would have supported you. But we don't really know that. Let her be gone for 8 months straight and you be stuck at home with the kids. We'll see how supportive you'd be. He's very resentful about her making him come back home to Detroit back then. Kobe and Russell. So they're at the gymnasium. They do their little activities. After the activity, they sit down and have a conversation. Kobe said that her parents were defending him when she had brought up how she was sort of uncomfortable with him going to divinity school. Her parents were completely on his side. And Russell was like, they're not defending me. They're defending the Lord. So Russell says that he's not going to be a minister or a pastor. He's going to divinity school so he can be a chaplain at the Army National Guard. And so Kobe feels a whole lot better. Okay, if you're a chaplain, you're not going to be gone as much. It's not going to be as demanding as if you were a pastor. So she's cool with him being a chaplain. But then he says to her, but if the Lord leads me somewhere else, that's where I'm going to go. Basically saying, eventually I'm going to be a pastor. In his confessional, he says that he's really shocked how unsupportive his wife is about him going to divinity school. So he wants to let her know, like, if the Lord leads me somewhere else, that's where I got to go. He wants to be a pastor, and that's what's going to end up happening. Moving on from there, we have Anthony and LaToya. So now they're out with their friends out on the boat. So they talk about Anthony. So once again, we're talking about Anthony and this damn Atlanta situation. It is not resolved. Oh, this happened like 2-3 years ago, and they're still like having issues about it. He's resentful. He is very, very resentful towards his wife because he couldn't fulfill his dreams in Atlanta, and she made him come back home to Detroit. He really hates the fact that she did that to him. So they talk about him going to Atlanta. His friend says, but you were really going there for business. And so they talk about how they had to go to weekly therapy. They're going to therapy every single week, but now it's only once a month. And I'm like, y'all were having weekly therapy sessions? Because it doesn't show. Y'all are completely on different pages about this whole Atlanta situation. So what was the point of the therapy? Like, what was resolved? If this is still coming up and it's still a hot topic between them, and Anthony is still very triggered about it, and it's to the point now where he's having a complete breakdown on this damn boat. Instead of enjoying the scenery, being out on the water, being out on this boat, being with your good friends, he's having a complete emotional breakdown because he said that when he needed her family the most, they weren't there for him, because they didn't want him in Atlanta either. He says that he felt abandoned. He felt unsupported by her family and by her. He says that he wanted the support from the family because all he was trying to do was just to better his family, make the money to better his family. And Anthony says that, I needed your parents. I needed your sister, and they weren't there for me. Complete emotional breakdown, crying, tears falling down his face. This issue is not resolved. This whole Atlanta issue is still not resolved between these two people. And she said that she felt abandoned by him, that he wasn't there because he was gone in Atlanta. Y'all, LaToya needs to ask Anthony, do you really want to be with me? Do you really want to be in this marriage, or do you really want to be in Atlanta doing your own damn thing? Because we can make it happen. This man is still crying about Atlanta, y'all. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.